Richard Tice from Reformers here. Very good morning to you, Richard.
Good morning to you, Mike. The sun is rising on London and the United Kingdom, but it feels that it's somewhat broken over Labour HQs.
Yeah, well, I mean, the front page of the Daily Express this morning has got the sinking ship scenario. I think their headline says, Starmer Chief Sugray exits his sinking ship. And you have to say, I mean, this is a woman who was personally appointed by Keir Starmer back end of 2022. She was talked about as the woman of great integrity, having done the reported to Boris Johnson and Partygate. You know, she was the brains behind everything that they did. She was personally appointed as the Queen of Downing Street, and she didn't even last 100 days, which is what she was meant to be planning.
She was literally planning for a smooth, successful transition. The grown-ups were in the room. She knew how everything would be organised. And actually what we've seen is less. We've seen up to 100 days of complete chaos. I mean, things are...
Absolutely.
At every level, wherever you look, things are descending into chaos. And
this reflects badly on the Prime Minister, doesn't it?
Well, it reflects very badly on the Prime Minister. It reflects badly on everybody around him. But most of all, most importantly, it reflects disastrously on the confidence, the mood, the feeling of the nation. Everybody is talking about this absolute chaos.
And it looks as though Rachel Reeves now, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, is kind of, you know, unpicking her budget with every day that passes. You know, we're hearing that the unions now don't want us to put the VAT on private schools.
Unbelievable. I mean, I'm now in line with the unions saying stop the VAT on school fees.
I mean, the Guardian giving him a kicking. You know, she's now saying that she might roll back on the pensions tax raid that she was going to do. You know,
the non-doms thing, that might be kicked into the long grass.
I think they're going to rewrite the entire... They've got this budget that was written. They're now ripping it up, and they're writing a new one, I think.
Well, that's likely the case, but I'm afraid it is going to involve substantial tax increases wherever you look, because another story on the Telegraph about the fact that the UK now has more illegal migrants than any other nation in Europe.
It's incredible.
Three-quarters of a million people.
The numbers are quite staggering because of the fact that we have got, you know, quite a high population but a small country. It says 745,000 illegal migrants are now in the UK, right? So all these people who tell us, but it's a relatively small number, why are you getting your knickers in a twist about it? You know, it's the real official legal migration you should worry about. This is research led by Oxford University, right? They now count, illegal migrants now account for 1 in every 100 people in the population.
1 in 100.
Yeah.
So if you go into a busy pub down the road and there's 100 folk in there, well, I mean, look at if you go to Wembley Stadium to see a Taylor Swift conference, then
there's almost as many of them there as there are Labour Party MPs.
Of those people will be illegal. I mean, the whole thing is utterly mind-boggling, and it has consequences throughout the whole of society, financially, socially. Culturally, it's just a complete breakdown.
And when you think of that number of people,
law and order,
and when you think of that number of people, 745,000 being housed, let's not forget, either in hotels or in accommodation which is being used, which could be used for people who are waiting for housing here. There's more than there are in France, which you might expect, 300,000 in France, even more than in Germany, where there are 700,000. And this comes, of course, after the day we had on Saturday, 973 migrants in 17 small boats across the Channel, biggest number ever.
So that's the biggest number I checked it, for 2 years, since November 22. And, you think, hang on, how can we have the most illegal people here when we're an island? I mean, the whole point, one of the great advantages of being an island is that actually... You know, you can protect your borders. It's relatively easy, and we have the finest. It's called the sea. We have the finest navy in the world, supposedly, completely impotent. And it's a shocking example of the failures, actually mainly on the Tory party's watch, because they were in government for 14 years. But
it's getting worse, though, isn't it?
It's getting worse. The arrivals on Saturday, 973. How's the Smash the Gang strategy working, Home Secretary?
Not very well, I think.
Not very well, absolutely. Well, talking of law and order, Mike, later this morning, we, Reform UK, have got a very important press conference at 11 o'clock, which I would urge everybody to, if you can, listen into, because that will be actually on law and order and on important information around the events of the Manchester airport incident on the 23rd of July, which you may recall, where police officers were assaulted. And so we will be talking about that. I can't sort of reveal much more than that now.
Yeah, I mean, we
very important press conference.
We get asked about that quite a lot. I would say on a daily basis now, people say, what exactly is it that's going on? Because the last thing we knew, I think the last thing we reported, was the police had given some kind of file to the CPS, but they weren't sure whether they could proceed with prosecution.
We will be revealing more information at 11 o'clock.
All right.
And a plan, so
well, we should look forward to
listen
that.
out.
Well, listen, going back to tackling crime, this news about illegal migrants comes on top of news that last week we learned that 1 in 50 Albanians in the UK is in jail. And by far and away, the biggest number of foreign prisoners in any of our jails is from Albania. And why can't we deport them? We've got an agreement with them.
I literally, I asked the Home Secretary why we couldn't deport these people in the House of Commons, and was given some sort of floundering answer. I'm so sorry, it was the Justice Secretary saying we are deporting people. Well, we're clearly not. We're sort of releasing almost 2,000 prisoners to create space in the prisons. We've got about 10,000 foreign nationals in our prisons.
Yes.
The largest constituency of which is Albanians. I said, why not just deport the lot?
Yeah.
Not only do we free up space in the prisons, but we save a whole bunch of taxpayers' money and get rid of these rogues and scoundrels.
Right. Exactly. We don't really need them taking up places in the prison system, and we don't really want them coming back here on a small boat, which is probably what they'll do. But we also apparently have the worst negotiators in the history of government. I mean, you've been in business all your life. Imagine having somebody negotiate, first of all, the sale of the Chagos Islands, which involves us not only losing control of it, but also then paying for future use of it, which we didn't used to do. Now, we pay people to go back to jail in Albania, rather than actually just kicking them out of the country. It's
absolutely extraordinary. Again, it is useless negotiators. And coming back to the point about the Chagos Islands, I mean, this is utterly mind-blowing. You know, we've been in possession, sovereign control of the Chagos Islands since 1814, the Treaty of Paris, over 210 years ago. And where was the pressure and the demand that this should be given to Mauritius, who've never owned the Chagos Islands? These islands are some 2,000 kilometres from Mauritius. I mean, just think about that. It's not exactly next door, folks.
And also, they didn't bother asking the people of the Chagos Islands what they wanted to do.
So they haven't asked the Chagosians, and this government hasn't asked Parliament. And so we are demanding a statement in the House of Commons. Actually, we're demanding a debate, and that there should be an act of Parliament on this. You can't just give away sovereign UK territory without an act of Parliament. I mean, otherwise, frankly, you might say that's treason against His Majesty.
Isn't this the problem? That, you know, to use the footballing analogy, you know, you might be Prime Minister of this country, but you're not the head of state. You're a bit like a football manager. You know, you come in, and in Starmer's case, I'm sure the owners have got absolute confidence in him, and they're sure he's going to turn the season around and it's all going to get a lot better. But at the end of the day, he's not there to change our history. He's not there to change our institutions in the same way that Tony Blair did. You know, he needs to just steward the economy, which he's not doing very well either.
And he's not there to give away lumps of the United Kingdom. And of course, it's very poignant, noticeable, that he didn't, he refused to rule out any further giving away of sovereignty, for example, Gibraltar or the Falkland Islands, when he was asked at the back end of last week. So these are the important issues that we're going to be talking about as Parliament returns today. It's been off for 3 weeks for the conference season. We've hardly been there since I've been elected, Mike. I mean, it's just absurd.
And this is the job that these people have been paid very, very handsomely to do. There's more sleaze today. There's more football tickets being handed out to a new Labour government who are supposed to be looking at whether to bring in a regulator to the Premier League. You know, that doesn't smell right. There's people getting foreign trips all over the place. And let me show you this. This is from August, because as you would know, we went looking for this. In Northern Ireland, in August, Keir Starmer was asked about Sue Gray and all the tension around Downing Street. Here's what he said.
And just on Sue Gray, on her position casement has apparently been causing divisions. Can you offer some clarity on that?
Yeah, that's complete nonsense. So I hope that's clear enough.
Yeah, it's very clear. It's a lie, isn't it? He says it's complete nonsense. Now, either he doesn't know that there's tension going on behind the scenes, which would be ridiculous, and so he basically he gets very tetchy when he gets
he gets very tetchy when he's pushed.
And he goes, that's nonsense, I hope that's clear enough. Well, yeah, but it's wrong.
So it is, but we've sort of come to expect this from him, because if you remember, when he was elected leader, he said that there was going to be free tuition fees. He said there would be, you know, campaign for freedom of movement. Jeremy Corbyn was one of his best friends. And all of these things, actually, he just completely did a U-turn and said, no, you cannot trust a single word that man says about anything, because if it suits him to change his mind tomorrow... I mean, he actually makes Boris Johnson look like a sort of model of probity, integrity, and honesty. It's quite remarkable.
Well, it's, you know, the interesting thing is that, you know, when you compare the two, and people used to say about Boris Johnson, we'll ask you about what he said about the ECHR in a minute, people used to say about him, he's great at campaigning, not very good at governing. But he was actually surrounded by some reasonably kind of substantial figures. You know, he had Rishi Sunak, who, whether you liked what he did or not, was a pretty substantial chancellor. You know, poor old Starmer's only got Rachel Reeves and sort of Angela Rayner and people who've never had a job in government. And so he's surrounded by complete and utter, you know, novices who don't know what they're doing.
Well, that was the whole point of Sue Gray coming in, to provide some ballast and some experience and wisdom, the connections into the civil service, and all of that has completely fallen by the wayside. And it is less than 100 days.
It's incredible.
I mean, I created this word Starmergeddon at the beginning of the year. We've now got Starmergeddon on steroids, and unfortunately it's actually pretty painful for all of us.
It is.
Particularly pensioners all over the country, worried about losing their winter fuel allowance, worrying about rising energy bills that are going up as we speak in this month, and children worried about whether or not their education is going to be damaged. SEN children places massive crisis shortfall there. It is utterly remarkable how this is falling down around everybody's ears.
Well, I mean, he talks about fixing the foundations of the nation, didn't he, when he came in? It's more like now he's got one of those houses that's teetering on a cliff. It's about to fall into the sea. I mean, that's what it's like. But I wanted to ask you about Boris. He was in the Telegraph last week saying we need a referendum on the ECHR. My view was, I don't think we need another referendum on anything.
Oh, come on. We're good at referendums, Mike. We like referendums.
Well, you've won it.
Absolutely.
You won it. That's why you wanted another one.
I mean... We're good at referendums. Let's have another one on the ECHR.
All right.
I think that'd be good. I tell you what, if we had a referendum on immigration, then I think we'd win that as well, because actually trust the people on this stuff.
Yeah.
And the reality is, let's remember, only 20% of the electorate voted for Keir Starmer.
Yeah. And 10% now regret it. So actually only 10% of people are actually in favour. I mean, even some of the... I mean, there's some great stuff in the Sun today, the Harry Cole comment piece about, you know, all the lefties who were saying, the grown-ups are finally back in charge. It's going to be great, isn't it? It's all going to be positive. You know, the Christian Guru Murthys of this world, James O'Brien, you know, Guardian editorials, all praising Keir Starmer to the hilt before he'd even opened his red box.
And what's happened, actually, basically the economy is flatlining already. Confidence is collapsing.
Yeah.
Investment is completely on pause until we've had this budget. Why was the budget so late, by the way?
Yeah.
If they've had so long to prepare for it, why didn't they get on with it?
How many times did they tell us that they were ready for government, that it was a fully costed plan that they had? I mean, all of that's gone out the window.
Completely out the window. So you've got investment collapsing, and you know, you've got thousands and thousands of steel jobs are being slaughtered on the altar of net zero down at Port.
There's 100,000 jobs to go in Scotland.
There's 100,000 jobs to go in Scotland, at least. And then we hear that actually up in British Steel, where they're sort of talking about creating electric arc furnaces, slight drawback, folks. We ain't got the electricity to power the electric arc furnaces. So we may be in a situation, Mike, unbelievable, where we can't make any steel whatsoever in the United Kingdom.
Do you think Keir Starmer lasts 5 years? Because I don't.
No chance. No, the question is whether he lasts 24 months.
I think he's gone. I think, if not before, after the results of the May elections, which are likely to be very good for reform and absolutely awful for Labour.
It'd be very interesting. It'd be interesting to see what some of the betting markets, the spread betting, say. How many months will he last?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a betting man, but yeah, it would be quite interesting.
We'll check that out.
We'll check that out.
We will. Richard, good to see you. So 11 o'clock, Manchester Airport press conference. You might get some news. We'll bring it to you right here, of course, on Talk.